You gotta get the eggplant one that Smokey has, bro. That's what it's all about. How's your day going, good sir? We are about to learn the ways of writing the spice. Hell yeah, brother. Sounds good. Oh, no, I don't want to start it. I need to find where the fuck is the music tab? There it is. Alright, there we go. Okay. Turn it up. Alright, so. Wait, this is techniques. Which ones were we doing? Shit, I thought we were doing... Okay, I said mistake. Oh, that's why. No, techniques for writing spicy scenes, and this is techniques. Alright, let's get into it.
If you're watching this, it means the censors haven't gotten to it yet, so watch it while you can. We're going over the 9 steps you need to take.
How long ago was this? 2 months ago. Nice.
In order to write a good...
This week on Epic, the game Figment is available for a few more hours. After 8 a.m. my time, Figment 2 is available. Ooh, damn, Sean, that sounds epic.
Entertaining, non-cringy spicy scene in your novel.
Nice.
Now, for obvious reasons, I can't put the text that we're going to talk about
True.
in this video, but if you click the link in the description, you can read the scenes that I'm talking about. And if you missed my video on the 9 disastrous mistakes that writers sometimes...
Oh, okay, well, I wasn't sure if he was going to say it. I guess we're doing mistakes first because it was the first video that he made. I should have looked at the times. But they were both 2 months. So, fuck it, we're starting with mistakes, guys. It's just the way that it is. Hate to turn the tables on you.
I wish I could say I had a hard time finding examples for this video, but it was all too easy.
Yeah.
These are 9 mistakes that I wish were rare when writers were writing spicy scenes, but unfortunately, they're kind of common. And if you haven't yet seen my video on the 9 ways to write spicy scenes well, I would recommend watching that after you finish this video. The first
Okay, so he...
mistake, which you should avoid at all
Then I'm going to see what he
costs.
says in the other video. Maybe I should have let him finish.
Mistake with spicy scenes, make sure to watch that after this one. Now the very...
So it doesn't matter which order I watch them in. Fuck it, we're doing mistakes first.
Number 1, thesaurus abuse.
Thesaurus abuse. I mean, I like to be very poetic in what I'm saying, so my thing isn't so much, well, I'll just give you guys a great example. The length command. Stalwart spectacle. And then we have depth. Encompassing desire. So, I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that like the idea of thesaurus abuse?
If you or an author you've read have been abused by a thesaurus, you can seek help. I honestly don't know what it is about spicy scenes that makes writers think like they can't use normal language and that they need to like find all sorts of cool synonyms. And for an example of this, look at Matthew Reynolds' book, The World Was All Before Them. He has this line in a spicy scene which says, "She seemed to be surfing the waves of neuromuscular euphoria." Yeah, there's a word for that, I think. Starts with an O?
Yeah.
Honestly, in 99% of spicy scenes that you write, there's no reason to use crazy phrases when a perfectly fine, normal word will do. Or look at Michelle Houellebecq's novel Serotonin, where this phrase appeared: "Offer her moist parts to my triumphant phallus." Okay, that was so bad it won a Bad Sex Award, like an official Bad Sex Award from the Literary Review in 2019. Triumphant phallus is such a deeply awkward phrasing. But the worst word of all time.
That's why I like stalwart spectacle a lot better. But that's just like for censorship purposes, right?
Spicy scene is definitely tumescent. There are
Wait, what?
tons of examples out there where this word is misused, but let's look at
Oh shit, Muffin!
Welcome
welcome
to the stream.
How is everyone going? How was the stream today, Muffin? You were popping the fuck off. There was like 9 viewers in there when I was in there earlier. Trying to get everything set up for the stream. I needed a fucking break. It's so brutal. We figured out everything. We got everything done. It was alright? How far did you get in those checkpoints on that one map, or did you give up?
Daddy's home.
True. Ooh. Sadly reset it at 1.5 hour mark around 30. Damn, Muffin, that sucks. That sucks, bro.
Ladies' Code of Misconduct. A certain character's manhood is described as tumescent swelling. Yeah, that sounds like a medical diagnosis where you have a couple months left to live. This next mistake is one you should avoid at all costs. It is number 2, similes attack. Now,
Okay.
look, I'm not against similes in spicy scenes. Sometimes a good simile is exactly what you need to convey to the reader what exactly is going on. But I have also seen them go terribly, terribly wrong. Norman Mailer, great writer.
My cat was sniffing my toe and I accidentally kicked him in the face. Ah! It's his fault. That's what you get.
He wrote The Castle in the Forest, among many other famous books. But he describes a limp male member as a coil of excrement. No, just don't go there. Like, your simile could have gone in a good direction, and it just went the completely opposite wrong way. But I think this next simile is actually worse than that. It is in The Shape of Her by Rowan Somerville. Like a lepidopterist mounting a tough-skinned insect with a too blunt pin. I want you to think about that image for a second. Actually, no, you probably shouldn't stop and think about that image for a second.
Any
that is a
brain
horrible
cells, none
image.
to lose.
It's like if Kafka decided to start writing erotica. You're like, no, I did not need that in my life. And sometimes the examples are just wacko, weirdo ones, like this one from Sean Thomas, who wrote Kissing England. She is so small and compact, and yet she has all of the necessary features. Shall I compare thee to a Sony Walkman? Thou art more compact and more. Now, if you're trying to be funny in your spicy scene, that's perfectly fine. Go for it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're actually trying to be romantic in some level, maybe hold back on some of those crazier similes. And by the way, if you are worried about horrible mistakes in your book when you publish, Danielle is the answer. She is a fantastic copy editor here at Bookfox, and she will save you from all those embarrassing mistakes that your reviewers are going to point out, and you're going to end up with a perfect, pristine, wonderful book. You can contact her using the link in the description. The next spicy scene mistake is probably
House
the worst
tour
one.
when? If it's 10 hours from now. Maybe 8 hours from now. 9 to 10 hours from now, Muffin, will be the house tour.
Can commit as an author, it is number 3, impossible biology.
Asking yourself if it's even physically possible to do what you're doing in real life.
Sometimes you read a spicy scene and you're like, I'm
gonna miss it. That's about 2 a.m. Damn. Oh well, I'll turn it into a YouTube video and pop it up on YouTube if you want to watch it later, Muffin.
I don't think that is physically possible. And that can really take you out of the scene because you're more aware of the author making a mistake than you are of the characters, you know, doing their thing. Now, I do want to make an exception for like fantasy novels. I mean, think of American Gods by Neil Gaiman, where there's one particular scene where a man is completely enveloped and swallowed by a woman's privates. Yep. Well, that's not supposed to be realistic. So, you know, nothing wrong with that. However, there are some...
Today felt like waiting rather than walking. Couple that with a freshly full belly, and I'm not long for this world. Catch you later. Have a blast. All right, Sean. Have a good night, good sir. Take care. Thanks for coming in and hanging out. Sean, damn. I know he's winning, bro. He's winning. Fuck! I'm not. God damn. I'm just bad.
Authors, when they write a scene, you think, I don't think you've ever done this before. In fact, I'm not even sure you have a human body. Like, you don't know how this works. Let's look at a book by Peter Herr called Smilja's Sense of Snow. This is a line from this book. It's kind of crazy. I don't know what is going on here, and I'm not sure it is physically possible. In general, I would just recommend trying to write spicy scenes in a way that convinces the reader like you've actually done this before. Or look at this other example from A.A. Gill in a book called Star-Crossed. I would classify this one just as kind of physically improbable, not necessarily impossible, but still it sort of beggars belief that the man sort of reaches down and lifts her up in this way. Also, if that is your idea of foreplay, I would recommend you see an intimacy counselor. The next mistake is honestly the funniest out of all of these. It is number 4, god-awful dialogue.
Of course, right? Fuck. Definitely fall into this one. Fuck dialogue. Don't need no dialogue.
There are some spicy scenes where everything is going perfectly well and the couple's warming up and the reader's getting interested, and then the character has to go and open their dumb mouth and say something stupid. Check out this example by Laurent Binet in the book The Seventh Function of Language. So he puts her hand.
Oh, if you want examples of that, just go to AO3, search nothing, then edit your search and set it to explicit. Oh, I'm sure, Muffin, I'm sure.
Hands on her shoulders, slips off the top.
Wait. I'm not even gonna ask.
And
I'm
then
not even gonna
says,
ask.
I desire the landscape that is enveloped in this woman. A landscape I do not know, but that I can feel. And until I have unfolded that landscape, I will not be happy. I'm not even clear what is being said here, but if he gets some after this speech, I would probably DNF this book. With all this landscape talk, I don't even know where he's going from here. Is he gonna start talking about like panoramic shots next? Or check out this example by Sebastian Fox in the novel Charlotte Gray. He's breathing her name and says, "This is so wonderful, I feel I might disintegrate. I might break into a million fragments." Now maybe that's not absolutely the worst dialogue that you can write in a spicy scene, but I do think it will induce some eye rolling in the readers like, okay, a little bit over the top. Also, if you're not a member yet, check out my Bookfox Academy, which includes more than 250 videos on everything that will make you a better writer, stuff like characters and plot and dialogue and sentence creation, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of stuff in there. Check it out. Now, this next mistake is one that writers make accidentally, and it is number 5, unsexy sexy scenes. Now look, maybe your purpose in your spicy scene is not to be sexy. I mean, if you're writing about coercion or assault or something like that, yeah, you're absolutely right. It shouldn't be sexy. But if you are trying to write some sort of spicy sexy scene,
and then your editor? I don't know, Muffin. I'm not in a position to be able to pay people to edit.
Failing accidentally, Houston, we have a problem. There are some scenes that are so over-the-top ridiculous that have complete and utter disregard for anything like reality, and they're kind of blind to the very essence of what sensuality is. And for this, we're going to go to an author named Jade West in her novel, Heartless. In this book, there's a couple that gets down and dirty right next to a dead body. Yeah, dead body here, couple coupling here. Awkward. But it gets even worse than that because they start doing stuff like
I don't have money to pay people shit. Why do you think I don't spend money on shit, Muffin?
And you're just thinking like, this is painful to read. An excellent principle to follow is you should write your spicy scenes in a way that tries to avoid becoming a poster child for what a spicy scene should not be. Anyone watching this video should not win a bad sex award. Don't do it. Now, this next point is sort of a counterpoint to number 5. It is number 6, believing that it has to be erotic. So I do think
believing it has to be erotic. Because you spent it all on buying that bra off your sister?
some authors get into this one-dimensional concept of a spicy scene where they think like every single spicy scene has to be erotic and sensual. And I mean, if you're writing romance, then yeah, probably it will be. But for a lot of other genres out there, you have a lot more options for what you can do in a scene like this. Remember that spicy scenes can be really funny.
Yeah, no, it's mine. I literally bought it yesterday after work. The only one I could find was an extra small. All of these clothes are mine.
Steve Almond actually has...
But it was on sale. It was only $5.
excellent essay about how to write a spicy scene in Writer's Notebook by Tin House. I mean, the title alone should tip you off that he's going for humor here. It is hard up for a hard on. But that's a great essay to read if you're interested in sort of having some humor in the spicy scenes. 2, spicy scenes can just be horrifying. I think of The End of the Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. One of the most
like
horrific
$5.
scenes I
Yep,
have ever read in a book, and it is emblazoned upon my mind. It is the perfect ending for that book, but it is truly horrifying to read. A third point is that sometimes spicy scenes can be depressing. And yeah, they might need to be sad rather than happy or joyful because of what you need to have happen in the plot. And a fourth point is that spicy scenes can provide an epiphany for your character. For instance, they realize like, oh, I'm not supposed to be with this person because how they're treating them in the bedroom. If you are merely going for stimulating, perfectly fine, shoot your shot, that's great, but just be aware that you do have many more options out there for what you can do with a scene like this. Now, this next mistake, it would behoove you to avoid. It is number 7, diving into the less elegant realities. So if you are going for some level of eroticism in your novel, sometimes you don't want to dive too deep into sort of the awkward, sticky realities of intercourse. I'm talking about fluids of all types, or farts, or you can get a little messy. And whenever I read that, I'm like, okay, is this author trying to gross me out or have me enjoy this experience between this couple? Because the characters seem to be enjoying it, but I, as a reader, I'm like a little ewed out. So a general principle is just try not to be too gross in your spicy scene. It is perfectly fine to skip over some of the less elegant biological realities in service to creating a sort of atmosphere and an experience between these characters, and also making your reader feel what you want them to feel in this scene. This next mistake is one that I see a lot of writers make. It is number 8, forgetting about anticipation.
Forgetting about anticipation. We don't do that because all of our stuff is kind of about that, isn't it? Not bad, Muffin, not bad.
Sometimes I see in novels a kind of insta-romance, like characters meet and then 2 seconds later they're doing it right away. But I would just have to advise you that what is often the most romantically charged part of the book might not be the actual act itself. It might be the lead up, right? All the little gestures and all the little flirting and all the little tension and all the wondering, is this gonna happen? Won't it happen? That is some of the best parts of a spicy scene. In Bernard Schlink's
Most
The Reader,
AO3
there is a
characters are
scene
4
where a
times
woman
that
tells
size. Do you mean like fat or like giant sized?
a much younger man to go ahead and take a bath, and oh, she won't look as he disrobes, and then she looks, and then he's in the bath, and she's elsewhere, and the reader's just sort of wondering, like, there is friction in the air right here. What is going to happen? Or look at this example from Holmes in her book Music for Torching. Here we just have a kissing scene between 2 characters, and it just has wonderful romantic tension to it. Don't be one of those writers that is in such a hurry to get to like the really spicy stuff that they skip over all of the lead up. That stuff is just as important. Keep it in, focus on it. And the final mistake that you want to avoid when writing spicy scenes is number 9, the rise of Frankenstein writing.
All right, this one's interesting.
So what is Frankenstein writing? Frankenstein writing is basically like lumbering onward with all physical movements, sort of jerky bodily movements, and that's the only thing that you focus on. Some of the best spicy scenes that I've ever read have, a few physical details, but then they also layer that in alongside stuff like thoughts and emotions and dialogue and metaphor. Don't handicap yourself in a spicy scene and just think, oh, I'm giving like blow by blow, like a sports announcer would announce what's happening on a field. And
why is this what you're watching? What are you planning on writing? It's a makeup day. We're writing a spicy scene. We're writing a spicy story. But it's more. It's going to be more of a romance than a spicy story.
Instead, what you want to do is you want to work
because it's going to be, like you said, all about the build-up.
Things. This character did this.
At this point, basically, the story is of a streamer who is like basically in love with her chat, but her chat is just a bunch of fucking trolls that are trying to get her to do stuff. You are the spicy scene. Oh, thanks, Muffin. Yeah, and then it's like trying to get her to do stuff to get her banned. So it's basically going to be a lot of like random stuff and build up. But you know, that random OnlyFans girl streamer. So again, a lot of this story is probably going to be dialogue and just like reading chat messages. So it's going to be very interesting. That's if we choose that. It could go in other directions. Like, what I wanted to do was maybe the entire time that you think she has a boyfriend, and then you find out it's her phone, and it's like an AI on her phone. Because I like that one, because it has, like, the twist to it. But we use twists so much that maybe we should write something that isn't. I read a story with kind of the same topic about Fillion. Interesting, Muffin. This is why I like try to stay away from the internet. The internet's a fucking scary place.
This woman did this. Because what that does is it treats people as being whole people rather than as disembodied body parts, caressing and stabbing and doing all sorts of crazy verbs. Don't be a Frankenstein writer. Focus on the whole person when you write a romantic scene. If you need copy editing, make sure to click the link below for Danielle. If you want to join Bookfox
Alright,
Academy...
so that's mistakes. Now we are on to... And just start from the beginning here. Notes on techniques for spicy scenes. Be back in a bit. Alright, sounds good, Muffin.
If you're watching this, it means the censors haven't gotten to it yet, so watch it while you can. We're going over the 9 steps you need to take in order to write a good, entertaining, non-cringy spicy scene in your novel. Now, for obvious reasons, I can't put the text that we're going to talk about in this video, but if you click the link in the description, you can read the scenes that I'm talking about. And if you missed my video on the 9 disastrous mistakes that writers sometimes make with spicy scenes, make sure to watch that after this one. Now, the very first step to writing a good spicy scene is to go high concept. So what makes this particular romantic encounter different than the others? What sets it apart? Why is there a reason that this needs to appear in the book? It could be that this is the first time they're doing it with each other. It could be that they're very inexperienced and this is their first time either one of them are doing it, period. You could be breaking some sort of taboo, like there is an age difference, or maybe they are both married, but they are both married to other people. You could be having a divorced couple have one final fling. Maybe the reason for this spicy scene is in the middle of it, they need to have an argument. In one spicy scene in The Reluctant Fundamentalist, there's a scene where the male character says, okay, imagine that I'm your dead boyfriend, which is horribly emasculating, but somehow perfectly captures the tenor of their relationship to each other. Or Darren Strauss wrote this book called Chang and Eng, where basically it was 2 heads or 2 torsos connected to the same body, and one of them got married. And so the spicy scenes with the wife was very uncomfortable for the other person. My point is, whatever the high concept is for this particular spicy scene, you need to have that in mind before you start writing it to know why this deserves inclusion in your story. Now, the next step is foundational to all spicy scenes, and it's number 2. Remember that this is a relationship.
Remember, this is a relationship.
Remember that lovemaking is about communication between your characters. And often the sex isn't just about sex. It's often accomplishing something for the storyline. So let's look at an example from Toni Morrison's novel, The Bluest Eye. First, there's a kind of unspoken desire. She doesn't want to open her legs, but she wants him to open them for her. 2, there's a kind of possessiveness in this scene. She wraps her legs around his back, and I think a normal writer when writing the scene would stop right there. But what Toni Morrison adds, which is so smart, so he can't get away. So she provides motivation for this character and a kind of possessiveness in her relationship. And there's also a kind of give and take in this relationship where she knows that he wants her to finish first, but instead she decides that she wants him to finish first. So there's this very complex relationship that's going on in the dynamic of this spicy scene. And little sidebar here, I know a lot of writers who publish their books and they just get crickets. There's no reviews, there's no readers. And at Bookfox, we decided to solve that problem by bringing on a publicist. Lauren is a fantastic publicist. She's gotten placements in stuff like Fortune Magazine and Today.com. And if you want to employ her to get the word out about your book, click the link to Bookfox Publicity in the description. The next step to writing a spicy scene helps it fit in with the rest of your book so it doesn't seem like an anomaly. It is number 3, propel your story. So let's apply the principle of Chekhov's gun to spicy scenes. The idea is if you show a spicy scene in your novel, it needs to have some sort of impact on the plot later on. So look at a book like George Orwell's 1984. This is a book where Smith has sex with Julia. But if you understand the context to this book, this is one where sex is very rigidly controlled. The state wants to destroy the nuclear family, and that even the act of having sex is a kind of revolt against the controlling authorities. So for Winston and Julia, having sex is an act of rebellion, and it impacts the plot because they might be persecuted or thrown in jail or even worse for doing this. But in your book, think about a spicy scene as maybe starting a relationship, perhaps it leads to pregnancy, or perhaps it actually destroys a relationship or marks the end of a relationship. If you tie the spicy scene to your plot, then it won't seem gratuitous, it will seem like an essential building block in the entire narrative of your book. Now the 4th step is absolutely unskippable if you really want to write a good spicy scene. It is naked character growth.
All right.
Let me ask you, how does this particular spicy scene help the reader get to know the character better? Because if it's not building their character in some way, then it might be a candidate to be cut from the book. There's not really a strong purpose to keep it in the book. You can tell a lot about a character by how they act in bed. Let's look at a book by Stephen Macaulay called True Enough. So the first characterization here is that he's very shy. And so what does he do? He keeps the lights off and he keeps it under the covers and he's almost embarrassed to be touching her. And the second characterization is a metaphor. He's basically a big puppy, but his size is at odds with how immature and gawky and awkward he is. And the last way that we see this playing out is that he is very hesitant and he almost feels like it's disrespectful to be doing the things that they're doing. Honestly, a spicy scene might be the best way for a reader to feel like they're getting to know a character. There are things that happen behind the closed bedroom doors that are so intimate, it gives us this window into the very soul and character of this person. Beginning writers often forget about this next step to writing spicy scenes. It is number 5, emotions gone wild. One of the mistakes that I mentioned in my other spicy scenes video was Frankenstein actions. And what I meant by that is entirely focusing on the physical actions during a spicy scene. So when I say that instead you need to have emotions go wild, what I mean is you need to layer in thoughts and emotions into the scene alongside the physical actions. And for an example of this, let's look at On Chesil Beach by Ian McEwan. In this book, we have very inexperienced virgins on their wedding night, and it's going the way you would expect it to. But I'd like to point out that the entire scene is structured through the lens of her emotions. So first, she is masking her emotions. She is terrified, but she's hiding it because she wants the night to be a success. So she's putting up this, front of, oh, I'm calm, I'm calm. There's also disappointment, that she feels disappointed that he didn't touch her a little bit more, warm her up a little bit more. But then a little bit later, she gets this spike of happiness because she remembers she read this little guidebook that gave her the advice of, oh, I need to help guide him in. And a final sort of emotion that she feels during this scene is just astonishment. She has seen various anatomies on animals and just didn't know it actually fit on a human. So in this one spicy scene, we're going on this huge roller coaster ride of emotions that this character goes through, and that makes the scene much more complex and realistic than if we were just focusing on physical actions alone. Now this next step is probably the one that's the most fun. It is number 6, talk that tingles.
Ooh.
Now, we are not talking about the sort of cheesy, over-the-top dialogue that belongs inside the covers of a bodice-ripping novel. I remember Philip Roth has this line in Portnoy's Complaint where a young man is imagining things that a woman is screaming, things that no woman has ever screamed in bed, but, you know, he's fantasizing about these crazy things that she would say. No, what we're talking about in this step is how to have good dialogue, realistic dialogue, brilliant dialogue that takes place during a spicy scene, which isn't cliche or eye-rolling. There's a really interesting scene in Lauren Groff's Fate and Furies where a couple is coupling. Instead of saying anything about the sex, what she's doing is she's stroking his ego. She's saying to him, "Oh, you're such an amazing playwright. I can't believe how good you are. You're an absolute genius." And it is such a good way to bring ego into the bedroom and have that complement the actual physical actions that they're doing. There's also a book called White Palace by Glenn Savon, and it is about a couple who is experiencing infertility. So in the middle of them coupling, she pauses and just says, "I wish we could have a baby." And it's such this like tender, heart-rending moment. I think that's the use of dialogue to hit at one of their main character struggles in the novel during the act of sex. I think that uses dialogue really well to deflate the actual romanticism of the moment and make it more transactional. Like, we're trying to do this to have a goal, but it's not working. And then a third form of dialogue you should consider is non-cliched compliments. For instance, James Salter wrote one of the best spicy scene novels of all time, A Sport and a Pastime, and in it, he just has the young man say to the young woman, "You have a wonderful profile." You know, it's nothing to do with specific body parts. There's nothing rude about it or particularly essential about it. It's just an honest, genuine compliment. So maybe think of compliments that aren't the most obvious ones when two characters don't have their clothes on with each other. The seventh step that every writer should think about when they're writing a spicy scene is to think beyond the bedroom.
True.
Look, it's perfectly fine to have a scene in a bed. Maybe that's what's appropriate for these particular characters in this particular story. But I'd like to encourage you that perhaps a more exotic setting might add something to the spicy scene. You might have read or watched the show Outlander, which was written by Diana Gabaldon. And in one scene in that book, there is a coupling that takes place in an open windowsill, and she is grabbing the edges to avoid falling out. It provides this wonderful element of physical danger to the scene. Or John Casey in Spartina, they end up making love on a riverbank. Or there's this 90s movie called 1114 where something happens at 1114 to a whole bunch of characters. In there, they're actually, doing it in a graveyard. Or James S.A. Corey wrote The Expanse, and so they're in space and they get to experience zero gravity coupling. Now, there are several advantages to getting out of the bedroom and exploring new scenes like this. One is that public settings have an additional layer of tension or danger to them. Two, you can use the scene in some way, the way that a fight scene often uses stuff around it and incorporates it into the fight. You can also do that with a spicy scene. However, there is danger to this principle. There are some locations where if you pick, it's going to be too far-fetched, and if they're doing it on a hot air balloon or something, you might get some readers rolling their eyes. I also think there is a little bit of a danger with like the perfectly timed environmental factor. Just as they climax, like there's a thunder cap, or the waves really crash in or something like that. You want to be wary of those environmental factors like syncing up just a little too perfectly. The eighth step to writing a really good spicy scene is unconventional desires. So this is really a matter of knowing who your characters are and then also knowing who your readers are. Because arousal doesn't take the same shape for all characters, right? What turns on one character might not be nice for another character. And also you have to know your readers' expectations and desires for what they might actually enjoy seeing on the page. I guess my overall point is don't assume that your character's sexuality has to match what's like normal or accepted. In a book called Normal People, written by Sally Rooney, there is a spicy scene where the girl asks the boy to hit her, and he declines. But why does she want that? It's because she always saw her dad abusing her mom, and she sort of internalized that and is wanting those sort of abusive relationships. Another example would be from Paulo Coelho, who wrote 11 Minutes. You might know him because you read The Alchemist, but he has a book in which a woman who has never been able to have an O, but when she gets into BDSM, suddenly she can actually do it. My point is that you need to explore for your character what their desire is in the bedroom and don't feel constrained by conventional morals or expectations. And the last step of this whole spicy scene process is number 9, the power of suggestion. On one end of the spectrum, you have fade to black, which is where you don't show any of the spicy scene at all, you just have the bedroom door closed and the reader doesn't get to see it. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have very explicit scenes where you're showing everything that's going on. However, there is an option somewhere in the middle. I would call it the suggestive option. This is an option where you only allude to what's going on, but you don't spell it out explicitly. And honestly, this is something that books can do much better than movies can do. Let's look at Peter Carey's The Tax
That's probably
Inspector.
my main thing.
In this scene, he keeps on saying like, oh, what if I try this? What if I try this? We don't know specifically what he's doing, but we can imagine. That's how you write a spicy scene, so it appears on the page, but in a very PG rated way. And you have to know your audience. You have to know whether that sort of suggestive scene is going to be right for them, whether they're going to be disappointed, or whether they think, you know, that's just about right for these two characters. If you need help with publicity, click the Bookfox publicity link below. And also, if you haven't yet watched the 9 mistakes with spicy scenes video, watch that now.
True.